Revenge films.
Since my husband passed away when my son was 3 years old, I've been living with my son despite being poor. It was hard to take care of him alone as a single mother, but he was always a good boy and he grew up to be an intelligent young man. He is now in his final year at high school and I work for a company. I've been working at a different company until 3 years ago, but it merged with the company I work for now and I had to work for a different department. The department I used to work for had a nice working environment, but there were many young employees in the department I work for now, and work was also harder. I was middle-aged, and the male employees always went easy on the younger female employees. They never complained when the younger employees slacked off, but towards me, who was forced to finish their job.
Oh? You're not done with your work yet? If you can't work hard, you should just quit.
They would tell me these things as if it was their habit. My son was already in high school, but I still wanted him to go to college, so I had to work hard. It was impossible for me to complain about work. The younger female employees always made fun of me, but I tried not to show my frustration at home in front of my son. But my son was starting to notice.
Are you okay? You look tired recently.
He was getting worried about me. To be honest, the younger employees treat me like a burden every day, and my boss as well as the male employees act as if I'm unwanted. So I was getting very stressed, and I took antacids behind my son's back. My stomach hurt often because of the stress. My son worked part-time so he could buy things he wanted, but because it was my job to look after him, I always told him he didn't have to give me the money he made. But I was getting weaker and weaker with overwork and stress. Despite all that, I pushed myself to keep going every day. But one day I found a girl on the ground crying after being hit by a bicycle on the road. I ran towards her, took out my mini medical kit from my bag, and dressed her wounds as much as I can. Fortunately, she just scraped her knees, so the girl was able to walk again after that, and she went home running after I bandaged her knees. I was about to be late for work, so I ran to work in a hurry. I arrived just in time, but my boss was cleaning my things up on my desk. Huh? What are you doing?
Well, you're late for work. We don't need someone like you who comes to work late in this department. So you're fired.
My mind went blank trying to process what my boss just said. It was true that I was 5 minutes late. I tried my best to explain to my boss about the reason, but he never listened. All the female employees around me also chimed in. Working with that hag just makes everything more miserable. The male employees also joined.
I never wanted her in our department. Actually, after firing that hag, many more younger employees are going to be joining us soon.
Like that, everyone around me were basically all my enemies. My boss handed me the box with all my stuff inside.
There you go. You've done enough,
he said, and he forced me, who barely had the energy to keep standing, to leave the office and shut the door in my face. My mind went blank, and before I realized, I was walking through the city. I don't remember how I managed to go home. Until my son came home, it seems like I was just sitting on the sofa staring at the walls blankly. I finally got back to my senses after my son called me after he came home from school. I felt apologetic seeing my son talk happily about his day at school, and I was crying before I could stop myself. My son was shocked, and he asked me what was wrong. I'm sorry, I didn't work hard enough, and I was fired from work today. When I said that, my son asked if I made a mistake or if I didn't sell enough at work, wondering why I was fired. So I honestly told him the truth because he was no longer a little kid. Once I started telling him the whole story, complaints poured out of my mouth one after another, which I always kept to myself. And when I realized I had told my son everything that happened at work, my son was silent for a while, but...
Don't worry, that department will be gone soon,
he said. I didn't understand what he meant, but I apologized to him, saying I shouldn't have complained about my work to my son, and I reassured him that I'll try my best to look for a new job and asked him to give me some time. But life wasn't going easy on me, and the only work opportunity left for a 45-year-old like me was part-time jobs, and it was clear that I won't be making enough money. While I plan to look for jobs I can work early in the morning and late in the night as well, the company I used to work for suddenly told me to come back as soon as possible. Also, they said to bring my son with me. I was even more confused when they asked for my son as well. But they said it was an emergency, so I headed to the company with my son. But I ended up hearing about the surprising truth there. We were suddenly taken to the guest room, and the department head I rarely saw at my office suddenly bowed towards me.
I'm very sorry about what happened.
I hope you can forgive us.
He said to me. Huh? My head was in a panic, but then he told me for the first time about my son. I knew that my son had grew up to be an intelligent boy, but it seemed like he had succeeded in making a program behind my back. The system was a game changer, and he had agreed to let many companies lose the innovative program. They were about to come to an agreement to let them use the program, but my son required the company not to provide the system to the department I used to work for. The department head and CEO, who knew nothing about what happened, got confused. And they got to know that I was his mother and that I was kicked out of my department recently. After checking if that was true or not with the employees from the same department, my boss and colleagues went pale as they admitted what they did to me. Although my son was about to graduate from school, I never knew he was that talented, and who would have ever thought that he made his own program and offered it to companies, setting a usage period? He said he did all this just for me. He was actually planning to finalize the program, taking his time in college, but he wanted to help me, who was going to work looking paler and paler day by day. He ended up making a very useful program, and many companies quickly came asking for his permission to use it. My boss was called to the room by the department head, and he apologized on his knees, looking very pale.
I'm very sorry. I beg your forgiveness.
He apologized in a voice as if he was about to cry. It was making me uncomfortable, so when I said I forgive him, he left the room as he bowed to me over and over again. After that, my son looked relieved about it, and they successfully signed a contract between them. Everyone who used to work at the same department as me was all punished and got a demotion. Transferred to different branches and departments, and they were making a whole new department from zero. The department head asked if I could come back to work with them, and while I was having second thoughts...
You don't have to worry about money now. If you want to work for yourself, you should.
My son said that to me. I actually enjoyed my job, and it was rewarding as well. The department I used to work for was honestly uncomfortable, but if I could work again, I honestly wanted to go back. I promised myself I wouldn't push myself too hard again, and decided to go back to work. Thanks to my son, our workplace became 3 times more efficient, and the CEO and department head said to me happily,
Your son is really a genius. He's a great son who's considerate of his mother as well.
They often said to me, and I felt proud whenever they praised my son. My boss who fired me never got fired from work, but I heard he was transferred to a local branch in the countryside. The female employees who made fun of me were sent to another department with high expectations, and I hear they're suffering every day. Some of the male employees who were looking forward to new young female employees joining them were even quitting work after being transferred to that department because the workload was too much for them. I kind of feel sorry for them, but it serves them right. I heard that my boss never asked the company for permission to fire me in the first place. My son had saved enough money, so he was planning to start a career as a student business owner of a startup. And I heard some people are already desperate to get connections with him after hearing about his reputation. My son said to me,
In return for taking care of me all these years, I'll be the one supporting you from now on. So I hope you have more fun in life.
That was enough to make me happy.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.